Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. This is your T-shirted historian, and welcome to another Week in Geek. But I guess this really isn't another Week in Geek. I mean, this is kind of a special Week in Geek because we hit our 1,000 subscriber mark this week, and I owe a big thanks to Ironcaster and Stone Loki and a lot of the other people who made that final push to get me over the hump and get me to my 1,000, and we're looking pretty good. I guess now the big money starts rolling in, right? No, I know it's, I always knew that it wasn't going to be like lots and lots and lots of dough rolling in because of the ads and everything else. But it is nice to have a little bit of supplements. I mean, obviously the main way we get our funding is from super chats, and by the way, my birthday's next month, so if you do super chat or super sticker, I'll actually get paid and have a birthday present for next month. No, but yeah, I wanted to celebrate, and the thing is, it's kind of a bittersweet week for me, because July 6th. 2023 at 9 p.m. My father died, and this time last year I was visiting him in the hospice and just watching him gasp and try to stay alive, sucking in air, and he couldn't even communicate with me, and I was holding his hand the entire time, and I was with him right up to the moment he passed. And, it's hard to know how to feel about all this. It's just, I knew this was going to be a rough year, 2024, and every day thereafter, after 2023, after this date, because it was going to be like a year of firsts. It's, first birthday, he wasn't with us. First Christmas, he wasn't with us. First whatever, he's not there, and just not seeing him around the house or hearing him or anything else. It's been kind of rough. And it's mostly been, harder on my mother than me. But there are still times I think about him, and especially when I look at some of our movie collections, because he was a big sci-fi fan, and he's pretty much who got me into sci-fi. I'm a second generation Star Trek nerd originally, because he watched Star Trek when he was in college, and he's the one who introduced me to it. And of course, he's the one who took me to see Star Wars back in 1977 at the drive-in. And we enjoyed a lot of movies together. So, it's I'm happy this week because we hit our 1K, but also it's, like I said, it's kind of falls at a weird time. But anyway, I wish Dad could have lived long enough for me to see me hit my 1K. Because I don't think he really even cared much about my YouTube channel or what I was doing. I'm sure he probably thought I was just wasting my time with it. That it would never amount to anything. And maybe it still won't. I mean, 1K is not exactly rolling in dough. But, here's to the future, maybe. So, moving forward. Love you, Dad, and I miss you. Anyway, let's bring on our people. We got Mr. Grimm.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
A little better. A little better. Just a little.
Oh.
Not a lot.
Okay. We got Mr. Caster.
Hello.
Hey. These are the two guys who've stuck with me the longest, to see my show hit 1K. So thank you guys for being there.
Well, I knew you could get it. It was just a matter of time, and I just want to make sure I help give you that last little push to, start the week out.
Well, I appreciate it, man. It was a nice surprise. I mean, I went to bed Monday night getting ready for Dungeons and Discussions the next day, and had 7 subscribers left to go, and wake up the next day and 17 subscribers, and I'm being shouted out on Stone Loki's show. So that was really cool, man. Thank you.
Like I said, you deserve it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you. We got Miss Ginger. How you
Hi.
doing?
Doing great.
We're gonna get you to talk today.
You can try.
Yeah, we can try because we have this man, Mr. Alexander Macris.
Hello.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, like I said, it's kind of bittersweet today, but I'm still glad that we made it.
I feel you, man. My dad died on July 20th, and it's been 24 years. I still think about it on July 20th.
Yeah, it's that first year is hard, isn't it?
It is. It's really tough. So.
But anyway,
Something I've learned is that it is a rite of passage that pretty much everyone has to go through. And it's tough to go through it fairly young.
Yeah.
I lost my mom a few years ago. So
how old were you when she passed?
I was 27.
Yeah, it's young. Yeah. Yeah, I lost my dad when I was 20. So he never really got to see me as an adult failure.
Whew.
well,
That's never mind. Go on.
well, thank you guys out there in the chat also for being a subscriber and making it to the shows. I do appreciate you guys very much. I mean, I would not be here if it were not for you guys, and you're the ones who kind of keep me coming back to this every week. So appreciate all of you guys. But happier because we got Alex Macris on, man. I mean,
What's up?
so cool, man. It's like second time we got you on the show. First time we were talking Acts 2, and I suspect from the mood of the people out there, they want to talk to you about Acts 2, but we're here to talk to you about Ascendants 2, the digital comic book.
Yeah, no, we can talk about whatever. It's all good.
All right. I don't have any pictures from the second one yet, but I do have. You were very nice and sent me the first one.
Oh yeah.
And that is some really good artwork. I love this.
Yeah, I partnered with this company called Glasshouse Graphics. That's a comic book art agency, and they source talent from around the world. And so they gave me a whole list of different artists I could work with, and I was able to pick who I wanted for the cover art, who I wanted for the interior art to match the style I liked. And so I ended up picking an artist from the Philippines named Meljoy San Juan to do the interiors, because she's really good at drawing like heroic heroes and sexy heroines, which is practically a lost art in some comic books at this point.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well, especially if you're in the mainstream.
yeah, exactly.
So I guess that would be a place to probably start with. What was it with superheroes that drew you in? Was it just were you a fan? Obviously must have been to some extent a fan of the comics growing up, and if so, are you still reading anything?
I was absolutely a fan of comics growing up. It was something my dad and I bonded with, actually, because he bought me my first comic, and he would regularly go to the comic store on his way home from work and bring me comics. So growing up, I read a ton of Green Lantern was actually my main hero. No longer really read mainstream comics. I don't really like what's being made by the mainstream very much.
Uh-huh.
In terms of where the comic book came from, it emerged out of the RPG in the sense that I needed a universe to set my role-playing game in. And in the process of creating the universe, I had to create a backstory. I had to create characters. And I was approached by an investor who really liked my RPGs. And he basically said, hey, you should really be in the comic book space. And he helped me fund to get started.
So I guess I did want to kind of poise on that a little bit more. What's been your sort of assessment, kind of looking at where the current state of comics is? Because that is an entire discussion in and of itself. And I was just curious what your thoughts about some of that is with, for example, like this stuff going on like with the Rippaverse. I don't know if you had heard about that at all or not.
No, I haven't. I mean, I know of the Rippaverse, and I know, Eric July is a prominent voice in the indie comic space, but what's going on, I don't know. No, I try not to pay too much attention to that because it's easy to get consumed by jealousy or, he said, she said, or drama. So,
because I don't know, just I've had this little thought on occasion where I was thinking like it would almost be an interesting kind of pair up to see some sort of either crossover or do some sort of kind of supplement with what you've done with Ascendant with some of those characters to kind of help out in indie RPG in the space of all the superhero stuff, because there's a serious lack of kind of equality there, and that seems like both you and Eric are kind of trying to address.
Yeah, I reached out to him, I guess at this point now, probably 18 months ago, to see if he would be interested in an Ascendant adapted RPG for the Rippaverse, and never heard back. So I assume he has bigger fish to fry, or he's working on his own game or something. Certainly, I would be open to it. I've been trying to get some licensed properties for a while for my systems, but for some reason, Hollywood types don't want to license to me, and I can't figure it out.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I know someone who works on it, so maybe I can try to at least get kind of get your name across someone's desk.
Sure, that would be great. Thank you.
And yeah, as Keely Chow points out, Chuck Dixon and Graham Nolan. We know Chuck Dixon and Graham Nolan, so and actually I also know Mike Barron. So if you ever want to get in contact with some of these, comic greats to work with your stuff, we got the connections.
Chuck, I know. Actually, I was going to be doing the Conan RPG based on Chuck Dixon's Conan, but unfortunately, we ran into some licensing problems and couldn't move forward. But I like Chuck's work very much. He's a great writer.
Yeah, he is. And I love this in your comic book right here. I wanted to point this out. Yeah, you've got Action Comics, first appearance of Superman right there in the comic books, and it's like, only the nerds know this.
Yeah. So one of the premises of the Ascendant universe is that it's set in our actual universe and not in a parallel universe where superheroes don't exist. So, like, for instance, if you think about the TV show or the comic book, The Walking Dead, the writer said that it's our universe, except that George Romero never made a zombie movie, so nobody knew what zombies were when the zombie outbreak occurred. And so they don't call them zombies, and nobody talks about the zombie apocalypse. So Ascendant is set in our universe where Marvel Comics and DC Comics have existed. And so when people begin to develop superpowers, they naturally gravitate to acting like the superheroes that they've read about in comic books their whole life. And so the reason the government puts together this superhero team with these ridiculous costumes and ridiculous code names is that they kind of focus group it, and they find out that if they have special forces soldiers who can kill you with your mind, the American people are terrified about humans of mass destruction. But if you take the exact same guy and you put him in a silly costume and call him Professor X-Ray, then they're like, oh, that's awesome. America has superheroes, and they love it. And so it's so the whole thing in terms of like, oh, American Eagle is a Superman XP. Yes, he is, but he's very deliberately a Superman XP because the U.S. government went out and recruited someone to be a Superman XP because they knew the American people would like that. So it's like layers upon layers in there. So anyway, that's what the reference to Even Study the Classics is about. Yeah,
I remember. I never can get this right. Is it Michael J. Straczynski or J. Michael Straczynski? Did a run of comics where he had like Hyperion and all the other characters who are basically supposed to be like DC amalgams, but they're they're Marvel. And he did something similar where the government basically, got Hyperion and raised him and all this other stuff. It took all the origins of the DC characters and kind of darkened them up and made them a little bit more gritty and realistic. And I thought, that's probably the actual way that the world would handle superheroes. So I like your approach to that.
Thanks. Yeah.
But okay, I got to ask, how closely do the comics tie into the TTRPG Ascendant?
Oh, incredibly closely. So actually, the entire graphic novel, we actually played it out in the TTRPG, in the tabletop role playing game, and the fight scenes are actually the panel by panel outcomes from the game fight scenes. So
Wow.
it's yeah, and it's interesting because you see, like in the first when American Eagle has his first big battle against Manticore, the player who was playing American Eagle is his first time playing Ascendant, and so he makes a lot of mistakes and causes a lot of collateral damage and things, and that's exactly what happens in the game. It's what happens in the comic, and then he finally hits upon a way to win. So and then likewise, the big battle at the end of the comic was the first battle by the 5 players that were playing the Star Spangled Squadron members. So it totally tracks. And one of the really fun things about having both an RPG and a graphic novel is that I completely avoid that problem that comic book writers have when they're just making it up. And one day warp speed is this speed, and one day it's another speed, and everything just functions at the level of what does the plot need. Everything is actually very objective. All the characters can do what they can do, and they never do things they can't do.
I like how you have the setting or the story that seems to derive completely from the system rather than the other way around, because a lot of designers, they will make the system based on what they think the setting should be. But it seems like you have designed the system and then fit the setting into it, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So my approach to game design is that I tend to take the rules as the laws of physics of the setting. And so for my project to work, for the Ascendant project to work, they had to be kind of analogous models. So, yeah.
Well, I got to ask where the, well, look at this. We got some great gore in here. So I like this that the comic does not shy away from being explicit. That is definitely something that I prefer in my comic books, is that it shows some gritty reality to the superhero, 4-color nature.
Mm-hmm.
But where can one purchase your comics?
Oh, well, so Baen Books picked me up, so they publish them. You can get them on the Baen website. You can get them on Amazon.com and in bookstores, or you can purchase directly from my website, which is autarkemporium.com. So it's basically anywhere fine comics are sold, except for comic book stores. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, we had kind of a discussion about comic book stores and friendly local gaming stores these days, and how they're pretty much turned into manga and Magic the Gathering card shops.
Yeah, it's very true. This is one of my favorite scenes in the comic, when with the tweets of the people reacting to the first of the superhero battle.
I love that.
Fuck, in a costume caused a car accident.
Well, I mean, and it's not really a costume so much. It really looks like he got like strapped on a bed sheet and put on a t-shirt.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So and this is, again, it goes to, it's set in our world, and the whole time I'm trying to think, how would people actually act if this happened? And given, like, we actually, in the real world now, we have people that dress up like superheroes and go out and try and fight crime, like that guy in Seattle, right? So then I thought to myself, if that guy actually got superpowers, he literally would be doing that. Like, that's what he would do. So that's my sense. So some of the people who get superpowers are like, I guess I need to put on a cape and go fight crime, because that's what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny because that is kind of, I suppose it would be people's first instinct, and that's something that's the heroic myth type thing, which I hate to tangent off, but my favorite comic book movie, and a lot of people, I have 2 favorite comic book movies, and people are going to be like, what? But out of all the comic book movies that have been released, my 2 favorites are Unbreakable.
Yes.
And The Mystery Men.
I love Unbreakable. Fantastic.
I love Unbreakable. Yes. I hated the other 2 films that were in that series, but the first one was so good.
So good. Yeah. And the way it was filmed, where every shot was like a comic book panel, like the camera never moves. So it was just amazing. Work of art.
Yeah, there was so much about that movie that is underrated and unappreciated. The dialogue was very well written, and the observations were very well written.
Yep.
So, what the hell happened with the other two?
Yeah, I really think that was peak M. Night. Like, that's his best movie, in my opinion.
Same. Yeah. What about the rest of you guys on the panel?
I like the fact that the guy who's wearing cargo pants as almost like a nod to Rob Liefeld.
So it wasn't intended, but that did come out pretty funny. No, so this is American Eagle. So he is a straight white Christian married father of two who's a U.S. Army veteran and works as a firefighter in Freedom, Nebraska. And his uniform has an American flag on the shirt. And I was like, is there anything I missed that I could piss more people off with? And I was like, no, I think I got them all. So yeah, and the whole plot twist with American Eagle is there is no plot twist. He's actually just like a genuinely good dude who tries to do the right thing. There's no deconstruction of the heroic archetype. It's just how he rolls. So the other characters he's like the straight man with which the other characters kind of interact. I'm personally really tired of every hero being the reluctant hero or the anti-hero or the deconstruction of the hero. And I just wanted to create a heroic hero.
My language.
You just hit Ironcaster's hot button. Go on, man. I know you want to say something, Caster.
That it is one of the most frustrating things I've had with superheroes as of late is the constant deconstruction and breaking down of them. That everything is muddled in shades of gray. Is that these characters are never truly great.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back and you're looking back at stuff from to a touch of Frank Miller to Alan Moore, and it's frustrating to see that has been where every superhero has basically gone,
right?
And so to see that here just makes me so happy.
Well, I think Moore's Miracle Man and then later on Watchmen they're absolutely brilliant works of comic book art and observation. But the fact that every single comic book person out there decided that's the vein we want to go into for the next 30, 40 years is just ridiculous. I mean,
I feel superhero comics, we didn't really have them here in the UK, which is weird because it's mostly the UK writers who have kind of spearheaded that deconstruction. But not everybody is an Alan Moore or a Grant Morrison or a Warren Ellis, right? Not everyone can do it really well. I mean, my favorite superhero comic book series are probably Martial Law, Planetary, Zenith. Those are and Watchmen. Those are the things that stand out to me, and they're all deconstructions in a different way. But they're all by really, really talented people. And a lot of these other sort of Johnny-come-latelys that go into the deconstruction, they don't have the pre-existing reverence and affection for the genre that you need to be able to do a proper deconstruction, I think.
Agreed. 100% agree.
And at least with Alan Moore, to his credit, he can do it well. And and not only that, he can then turn around and adapt the character well. His Superman is some of the best there was.
Agreed.
Yeah. And Grant Morrison has gone both ways, like his was it Superman Year One or whatever it was, or was it Yellow Sun? I can't remember. He kind of went back to basics. So he's done both sides of the equation. He's done the deconstruction and he's done the reconstruction, and he did similar with X-Men. But it seems like there's nobody of that caliber working in comics really anymore.
Yeah, I think if someone is capable of doing a good deconstruction, it's because they're capable of doing a good construction. I don't think it's possible to be good at deconstruction without actually also having the talent to write it straight. And that's the problem, is a lot of people plunge straight into the deconstruction and they're not actually good enough to do it. So
I was about to say there's oh, sorry, Harmony.
No, please go on.
There's a YouTuber I like that is a professor, and he talks a lot. The main topic of his channel is comic books and the hero archetype, and it's a pretty fun channel. Look up Professor Geek if you like to hear somebody rant about deconstructions and things like that, because he actually knows what he's talking about. He's professor of like English literature or whatever, something like that. So he is definitely all about the heroic archetype.
Yeah, one of the things I've talked about on Twitter or X is the rise of the affirmational hero over the aspirational hero. So it's one of my favorite panels. So the aspirational hero is the person you look up to, the person you'd like to be. You know, they're beyond your capabilities, but they give you something to aim your life at ascending towards. And then the affirmative hero is the person just like you who's able to do heroic things, and it makes you feel good because you're like, oh well, I'm a hero too. And it's like the affirmative hero is more of a therapeutic hero, whereas the aspirational hero is designed to inspire you to greatness. And what I've seen is that aspirational heroes have gone away, and affirmative heroes are all we have. So we get combat wheelchairs in D&D to affirm that disabled people are just as effective in combat, for instance, et cetera, et cetera. So I try and write, for the most part, aspirational heroes, and I also try and write villains who really enjoy being villains. Like, you know, Manticore he's having a really good time being Manticore. So.
And there's also the trickster archetype, which is a different thing entirely. And that tends to be treated and mishandled, you know, quite frequently. A trickster like the Joker is not shouldn't always be a murderous psychopathic serial killer. I mean, you can make that part of his personality, but he has a classic trickster archetype is Robin Hood to me. It's Renard the Fox or something like that.
Right, exactly. And we have a trickster or two in this series as well, but it's a great archetype and it's misused.
I mean, plus when you do, the thing is, for a good villain, you want to be able to use them to help inform the hero. Like,
right.
The hero has to have a great villain to overcome. And there is an importance to being able to write a good villain, which it seems to be a lot of the modern idea of where you have so many of the modern day writers who seem to like their villains so much more than the heroes, to where it seems like the hero is just sort of there as a byproduct of, well, I guess we have to have Captain America in the Captain America book because I really want to tell stories about the Serpent Society.
Yeah.
Well,
it's so true.
That is bled into other media now as well, because we've got Leslie Headland's Acolyte Star Wars show, which is awful, and apparently she's very big on the Sith, and she wants to glorify the Sith and kind of try to tell everybody, the Sith aren't so bad. They're the Jedi are the real bad guys here, and I'm just kind of like, what planet are you from?
Right.
It's interesting to hear you talk about archetypes. Oh, sorry, Harmony, go on. I'll cut you off once before. Go ahead.
I think genre fans are really hungry for the traditional black versus white morality. I really do. We've had so many deconstructions. This is something that Alexander said earlier, that there's been so many deconstructions in the genre that people don't even understand what it is that they are deconstructing anymore. People can't write. People can't construct, but they can deconstruct. And I think people are tired of it. I really do.
Agreed.
It's like Tolkien said, evil could only, can't create. It can only ruin. It can only deconstruct.
Yes.
As I was saying, it's interesting hearing you talk about archetypes, because I was just thinking that a lot of really good comic book writers are occultists who play with archetypes and things. I mean, Alan Moore, hit middle age and decided to become a wizard. Grant Morrison is a chaos magician. Warren Ellis isn't an occultist, but he's a transhumanist and is fascinated by the occult. All those guys, they're all into that stuff around archetypes.
Neil Gaiman is, of course, Neil Gaiman.
Yeah. Well, he's into his folklore and so on. So that's where that comes through. Have you read Morrison's Super Gods? Alex.
It's been
No,
in
I
my
haven't.
backlog of books I've been meaning to read.
It's good because he argues that superheroes are like modern versions of the Greek gods, and he goes into great detail about all of that and his view on creating these things. And it's I don't agree with him, but entirely, but it's a very good book.
So I'm definitely inspired by mythology, and in fact, one of the Easter eggs in the Ascendant universe is that not all, but many of the heroes and villains in the universe are actually the equivalent of the gods and goddesses in the Arn Empire universe of Acts 2. So, Taurus, god of strength and honor, is American Eagle, et cetera, et cetera. And there's actually there's an in-universe reason for why that is as well. So they're actually, the two games take place in the same overall universe.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Can I ask then which god Levity is supposed to be?
So Levity would be in Arn Empire terms, he would be a minor god who's not powerful enough to be in the pantheon.
Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, Levity is a character that's I know is at the very least in the RPG book. That's a manatee with the power to fly,
and he also has a really good sense of humor. Yeah,
that's funny. That almost reminds me of the Wild Card series from George R.R. Martin, which that was actually a good series. I mean, people could talk so much smack about George R.R. Martin all they want to, but
no, Wild Cards was great. Yeah,
I liked Wild Cards.
Yeah, and it was based on, from what I understand, initially inspired by GURP Supers.
Yeah, no, it was Super World. Super World was Super World, and it was kind of funny because one of my oldest friends actually has a copy of it with the box still intact.
Wow!
Because I asked, he is really big on superhero games, and so I asked him about Super World, and just out of nowhere, he produced it and showed it to me. He's like, "Yeah, this is Super World. We played this." And I'm like, "Oh my god, I haven't even seen this before."
That's amazing.
Yeah. We did actually have a question out there though, and it's a pretty good. It's from our friend Patty's Parlor. It says, "How do comic stories intertwine with RPGs, or are they better left on parallel tracks than trying to combine?"
Oh, that's a great question. So what I did was I wrote a multi-year timeline of how I intend the Ascendant universe to evolve in the comic book. Then what I did is I set the first graphic novel actually a couple years before the timeline of where we are in the RPG. So the RPG is taking place about 2 years after the first graphic novel. And so if you've read the RPG, you have a sense, big picture of what's going to happen in the future. And then I use the graphic novel as a way to sort of zoom in on key events and give them to you in living color. So the graphic novels are really prequels for the role playing game, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So I guess the volume 2 will be another, just like the add-on for this, so you can kind of get more into the lore.
Yeah, exactly. So volume 2 takes place shortly after the conclusion of volume 1, and builds on the events that occurred and kind of moves the story further. Yeah, but it's still a prequel to the RPG.
I liked it. I mean, I'm a comic book fan because I grew up reading them too, and I've got my long boxes stashed away, and I think that's pretty cool to have a comic book RPG that also has comic books as its storyteller. And the other system I remember that used to do that was Villains and Vigilantes, of which I have some of those comic books.
Yep.
And it was pretty cool because in the comic books they would actually have stat blocks for I think the villains and some of the characters in it.
Mm-hmm.
As well as some really good girl art.
Yes. Well, that was Jeff D. He did a lot of the art for first edition Dungeons and Dragons too.
Yes, good stuff, man. But I love this, man. And I did pick up a copy of the Ascendant RPG just to be able to kind of follow along with this, and I'm enjoying it. And And it was kind of inspired by FASARIP system from Marvel, huh?
Yeah, so it had two inspirations, was the Marvel RPG from the 1980s and the DC RPG from the 1980s, both of which had elements I really liked, and I wanted to bring them together. So Marvel had this really nice color-coded table that lets you very quickly resolve actions. And then DC Heroes had this wonderful logarithmic approach to superpowers. And so I wedded them together and I cleaned up the math and really very pleased with how I came out. I think it's, because I started from scratch and built upward, it's a more cohesive and streamlined game than Acts 2, which is I love Acts 2, but it's very sprawling because it sort of organically evolved, whereas Ascendant was built more like a sports car from the ground up.
Nice. Yeah, I have yet to try it out, but I do plan on getting a copy of it to my friend who loves superhero games and getting his opinion on it. I showed him the latest Marvel iteration that came out. The playtest version came out not too long ago. Now the full version is on sale, and he did not think much of it. So Marvel has fallen a great deal from where they were. I mean, not just in the comic books, but in movies, and apparently now the TTRPGs as well. So,
it's so silly this because they wanted to play up the fact that the universe is 616. It requires 3 dice, 2 of which you want to roll 6s on, and one you want to roll a 1 on, which is just backwards thinking. That always it feels like they threw a monkey wrench into the idea just to try to play up the fact that it's a oopsie doopsie little quirky RPG.
Oh God, I got that bit of blurb this week that MCCDM is going to be using a 2-die-6 system. And I'm just like, what the hell, man? It's like, so what, basically you're making Sword World version 2? That's so original. We like 2 dice, and the D6s are, so, what's so unique and original about this, man? It's like half the numbers you're going to roll is 7s. I mean, that's your bell curve. 3 of your dice outcomes are going to be 7s. What's mathematically challenging about that?
Right.
I think somebody went through and posted the probabilities that they had for certain things actually correlated to a D12. Just by the way they did their distribution for a certain mechanic in their game. It was the exact same as rolling a D12.
Yeah, I read that thread. It was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
D12 was underappreciated, actually. I kind of like them. They're the die that gets no love, but
it doesn't. There is actually a full D12 system or two, but
yeah, there are now. Yeah,
but Full Metal Dragons is
scared away of tables and charts. Yeah, I'm sure that's true. But look, I think there should be games for everyone, but I don't think every game has to be for everyone. And I design my games with a particular target, and it's people who really like simulation. And the ones that like it. The ones who don't, they weren't my target audience.
And Maliki, I do have a copy of Heroic. It's over there on my shelf, actually. But, yeah. Horde Wars. Horde Wars is a D12 game. That's actually pretty good.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that is. Yeah, DM Blackwell's Horde Wars is a good game. I tweeted that one, actually. Yeah. Traveler. Well,
yep. Traveler's use of 2-6 is unassailably great, yes, but Matt Colville making $5 million on a Kickstarter for a game that hasn't even been created yet, and he's still busy trying to decide on the mechanics of it, and suddenly coming up with, let's do 2-6. That's unique and revolutionary. Is yeah, I mean,
this is why I said I try not to pay attention to what my competitors are doing because it's too depressing. So
yeah, like I hear 2D6 and I think, did we just steal another RPG from Japan?
Exactly. I mean, it's like, we've said it is like, the Japanese have been using 2-6 for years because that was the only dice that they could really get a hold of reliably. And I'm kind of like, I have nothing against 2-6 systems, but considering I've been using wasn't Tunnels and Trolls 2-6 originally? Yes?
Maybe.
And that's
maybe for the saving throws.
Yeah, and I mean that's been out since what 1973,
75.
75? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's 2024, and 2-6 is suddenly revolutionary again. I'm like, how the hell did that happen?
People don't read old systems.
Yeah.
I guess not.
No,
It-
people
Cultural
want
amnesia.
stuff with new shiny art, and they won't read the old stuff. So I mean, if you have 2-6 in the new systems, they'll think it's brand new. It's wild how this works.
In general, people don't read or pay much attention to game mechanics. Like, it's one of the things that's always surprised me is people will be like, oh, you know, I love Axe so much, the art is great. Like, really? That's the compliment? Is the art is great? Like, okay, I mean, I'm glad you think the art is great, but you know, it didn't take 2 years to do the art. So,
It took me longer on one on one project.
yeah. So
speaking of which, I do love the art drops you've been doing for Axe 2 because I've been enjoying those on Twitter.
oh, cool. Yeah, I'm having fun. I mean, it's a lot of art because it's 1,500 pages we got to illustrate. So that's why the project's a little running behind.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Full Metal Dragon, yeah, Stars Without Number. All of Crawford's systems use D20 and 2-6 for their skill checks and stuff. And it's one of the things I like about it, actually.
Yeah, we do the same in Axe 2. We use D20 for attack, saves, and proficiencies, and 2-6 for reactions.
Mm-hmm. I honestly just think that's the best way to go. That and oh man, coming from I shouldn't say coming from a 3.0 background, but because I originally started with BX and then, but considering that 3.0 is the game I've played the longest at this point, I really hate the D20 skill checks with the mound of pluses.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord.
I was driving home the other day, kind of thinking to myself about just mechanic ideas. And I was thinking about this idea of just telling players to pick 2 random dice and see if they, and then arbitrarily decide it's either going to be a low number or a high number. But I'm not going to tell them which dice to pick. So maybe they think they want to roll high, so they'll grab 2d20, but I pick 4.
That's easy.
Yep. That's neat. So then the smart plays, you basically want to always roll 2d10, say, or 2d8, right? Because that way, or as a smart play, you want to have 1d20 and 1d4. I guess it would depend on your mechanic.
Basically.
Oh, wow.
Those are impact look like, oh.
See, this is one thing I do like about the comic book is the realistic damage that the characters are doing to the surrounding area. I'm just going to go out on a limb for a second and say that I know a lot of people hated Man of Steel. I know they do, and that's fine. You can hate Man of Steel all you want to, but that is the best Superman fight I've ever seen on anything, bar none, just because of the damage that's being done to the buildings and the surrounding area, because it's just like, this is what happens when people who are that strong and that indestructible are hitting each other and smashing each other through,
Absolutely.
cities.
Yeah.
So,
but the problem is it's Superman. It's leading to a bad characterization.
Well, okay. That aside, though, it's still the best super fight I've ever seen.
I agree. I agree. I actually really liked Man of Steel. I know I'm a weirdo for that, but I did.
No, you're not alone. You're not alone. Now, the rest of that series was like, ugh, but that one held its own, I thought.
I liked Wonder Woman as well.
I liked the first Wonder Woman. Yeah, the second one
Wonder
was
Woman
like,
one, yeah.
Durr. What did we do?
You need
here?
a new table for Snyder-esque environmental damage.
That's right.
Snyder-esque destroy this building.
Well, the Ascendant actually has tables for that, and so
what?
So when you're saying we hit Olympic Park at 32,000 miles per hour, so that's actually the speed at which American Eagle can travel. It's 15 SPs in the game terms, 15 supermetric points, and so based on that impact plus his weight of 3 SPs, it's the equivalent of an 18 SP explosion, and then you can just really look at the chart and see what it does.
I should have known. You would have done the math on this.
Oh yeah, the whole
And the fact that he could do that off the top of his head too.
Yes.
Yeah, all of Ascendant is logarithmic math where each point doubles, which gives you these really neat effects. Like, for instance, if you want to know, and everything is rated in logarithms: time, energy, distance, speed, weight, strength. So if you want to be like, let's say in Ascendant, how far can Superman get in an hour? You literally just add SPs of time to SPs of speed. And because it's logarithms, addition works like multiplication. And so boom, you have it. How far can American Eagle throw a bus? You just take American Eagle's strength, you subtract the weight of the bus. That's how far he can throw it. How much damage will the bus do when it hits? Well, the damage it will do is the weight of the bus plus the speed at which he threw it, et cetera. And what will be the speed at which he threw it? Well, it'll be his strength minus the bus's weight. So it's like you can do all this amazing superhero math right at the table and get fantastic results. So,
Macris asks, do we need logarithmic tables?
No, the only thing you need to have is you need to know what the logarithmic score of your character is, which is the game mechanics. So it'll just be like a character sheet will be like American Eagle, might 15, weight 3, and then you look up bus and it says weight 6, speed 5 or whatever. So that's it. It's super easy. Yeah. So that's the genius of Ascendant, is that it makes the whole game is entirely logarithmic, including your hit points, your damage, everything.
That doesn't surprise me at all, since the meme I've seen everywhere about Axe is someone will come up with some bizarre role-playing situation and someone will respond with, Axe has rules for this.
Yeah, Axe already does that.
So this surprises me like not at all.
And I think Jeff Rowe's being cute with this, but I mean, speaking for myself, I'm a historian. I'm not a mathematician, so yeah, I suck at math. But if you want to know 6 things to do with piss in the ancient times, I can tell you.
There we go. Look, I'm sure there's a lot of other designers who could do it. They just choose to focus on other things. I happen to think my sweet spot is I'm a good systems thinker and I enjoy simulation, so that's what I focus on.
Mm-hmm. No, and I appreciate it too when I see stuff like this and then know that there is actual math behind it and going, oh, that's scary cool.
Yeah. I mean, I tried once to write a narrative story game and it failed. So I was like, okay, can't be good at everything.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know so much about fantasy games, but definitely for superhero games, because they tend to involve our modern times and things like that. Math really does play a big part in it. Like how fast are you falling? What the impact is going to do when you hit the ground. And
yeah.
So you do kind of need a little bit more math on that. And the old Marvel superheroes game wasn't really necessarily good about that. I mean, it was good for telling you, what happens when one person punches the other one, but it's not really good at telling you like how far you're flying and what you're going to go through and how much damage it's going to do to the surrounding area.
That's right. The world wasn't rated the way the characters were rated, and so it was very hard to handle environmental stuff. Whereas in Ascendant, we actually have a whole chapter called Saving the Day. And it's just like, hey, what if there was a landslide? What would be the SPs of weight of the landslide? What are the SPs of the heat of a volcano if your fire controller wants to stop Mount St. Helens from blowing up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So so it's really fun. So you could basically be like Thunderbirds or things like that, natural disaster fighters.
Okay. Does Full Metal Dragon know something that we don't? Are you working on a post-apocalyptic game?
I have been for quite some time, but I'm not making very good progress because I can't figure out the car combat.
Yeah, vehicle combat is rough.
Yeah,
you're not alone on that. And I think Kevin Crawford is actually working on a post-apocalyptic. He's retooling Other Dust, so I guess it's going to be Dust Without Worlds or something, without numbers.
Somebody on the panel's got post-apocalypse. Somebody has one. His name might be Greg.
Oh yeah, that's right. Your kaiju game.
Yep, it's a post-apocalyptic cassette futurist setting, and I do have combat rules that work for vehicles.
Yeah, I've got post-apocalyptic credit too. I worked on Year of the Zombie and Darwin's World. So
nice. Yeah, if I do post-apocalyptic, my favorite post-apocalyptic movie is Mad Max, and my favorite RPG was Car Wars. So I kind of want to have like a car combat centric, Mad Max kind of game. But but it's hard, right? Modern players are a lot less tolerant of the sort of complexity that Car Wars had. So how do you have that Car Wars flavor without, without turning people off from the game? So
you got to blow that up.
Unsolved problem. So,
I,
yeah, there we go. Fighting fire. Yep.
I thought I would just grab an example out of the RPG just to show like the amount of thought and consideration has gone into all of this.
Yep, exactly. So like if you know the fire's magnitude and your water controller can move a certain amount of weight, now you know how long it'll take them to extinguish the fire. And this is all based on real world firefighting information.
Wow.
I
Jeffro.
Okay.
Sorry. No, go ahead.
Okay. I nearly baited a GM this week into running car combat, but instead he just had me assassinated as soon as I got behind the wheel of a car.
That sucks. Jeffro says Car Wars. Yes, it is. Car Wars is an RPG. Few people understand this. Yeah, agreed.
Mm-hmm. I had it. I have a lot of the old Car Wars stuff. Full Metal says Ashes Without Number and should hit Kickstarter in August or September.
T-shirt. How do you not know this?
I know, man. I guess I don't keep up with Crawford as closely as I should. I'm too busy reading his books and like putting them in a sacred spot on my shelf and praising them every Saturday and Tuesday.
Should be called Dust Without Rumba.
Dust Without Rumba. Oh,
brilliant.
Yeah, no, just like you were saying, yeah, it mentions right there where you pulled a lot of the data from.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what's happening here is that Manticore has regeneration and American Eagle does not. So American Eagle was trying to take him out with one blow and failed, and so now Manticore has recovered back to nearly full health, and American Eagle has had the shit beaten out of him, and just does not know how do you beat someone who just can constantly regenerate no matter what you do to them. If they can regenerate from a 32,000 mile per hour collision, what do you do?
Yeah, it's that super regeneration versus super invulnerability. I think in
how
one of the
kill that which has no life?
You throw it into the sun, so its cells are constantly being destroyed at the moment they're being regenerated, which is, I guess, what he's doing.
Cut it into tiny pieces and put them all in individual boxes.
Punisher actually did that to Deadpool.
Oof.
The rules say he's still alive.
Well, I mean, literally, that's what he did. It was in an issue of Thunderbolts. He shot Deadpool in the head, cut him up, and put him into individual little vats and stored them all in like various refrigerators. And
as you do.
I mean, it was the only way he could keep him from regenerating. So this actually happened in the comics. He or in the game, he took him up into outer space and threw him into it.
Yep. What he did was he used his. So you can use hero points in the game to increase your stats temporarily, and so he used his hero points to increase his speed to a sufficient velocity to hit escape velocity. And American Eagle has invulnerability that lets him survive outer space, and Manticore does not. Manticore just regenerates. So he's now, and he has winged flight, whereas American Eagle has basically magic flight. And so Manticore is trapped in outer space, constantly dying and regenerating for all time.
Until one day he plummets back to Earth.
I like that one sign the one lady was holding up. I like the Cape guy. Are you single?
Uh-huh.
I noticed that too.
Make America super again.
Yep. Yep.
Well, this is fun. I definitely want to read the second one.
So now he's chilling at home. He's recovering, and it's just he's got his family.
And that's not even where the story ends, because this is like 96 pages.
Right. This is just super. This is his origin story, and then we cut to another character after this one. Now these two guys are the same guys that appear earlier in the story, and they're the ones that created Manticore. So the backstory, more or less, is that the U.S. government accidentally created Manticore unintentionally, and And so ever since, they've been trying to find someone who's strong enough to deal with the problem they created. And so they see this guy on TV and they show up and they're like, "Hi, we're from the government." Well,
And I don't want to give away the rest of the comic book, so
yeah.
But yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah, Kirsova actually just gave us a really positive review. He said he thought it was much better than Rippaverse issue 1, and that he said the last third of the comic was some of the best fight scenes he'd ever read. So I was very kind.
Yeah. I mean, so
Gold.
I can say that as someone who has read Rippaverse 1, from what little bit I've seen of this book, for Ascendant 1, this feels like a more complete story, whereas the Rippaverse ISOM #1 was basically trying to set up an entire universe. You have the benefit of having the RPG to help do a lot of that at the same time, because I mean the first chapter so was like 30 pages roughly of just all this like really fascinating world building, and
right.
that does draw me in, because if we're going to have the U.S. government stepping in to now try to recruit superheroes, that's the kind of thing I like seeing. Is like what's going to happen with other nations, because this is now just a new superhero arms race.
Yeah.
I decided responses to that.
Exactly. I decided to tell the whole backstory in an epistolary format, so it's all told indirectly with news and leaked documents and interviews and things like that. And so you have to kind of piece together what's happening, which was really good fun. And so then the comic lets me zoom in on particular news articles, basically, that show up in the RPG, and then you tell the story of how those came to be in a more narrative format. So,
Harmony, did you have some burning questions for Alex?
What's your shirt say? Show us your shirt.
Getting booty.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes, it's from the massively multiplayer online role-playing game Pirates of the Burning Sea, which I consulted on. So I got a T-shirt out of it.
Oh, Carlos,
I'll give you a T-shirt to consult.
you mentioned it earlier, but Carlos wants to know.
Yeah, it was drawn by Meljoy San Juan, and she works for a company called Glasshouse Graphics, which is a comic book talent agency.
Oh, Full Metal says Ascendants Rogue Gallery book is amazing, which I imagine it would be.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so that was a fun one. So that's like a compilation of villains and heroes, and each one has a mission briefing written in character, in world, from the point of view of the Star Spangled Squadron's intelligence department. Art on that one was Meljoy San Juan, and then also Jinky Coronado and Tina Francisca.
You might want to tell Carlos what agency you went through.
Yeah, Carlos, go to Glasshouse Graphics. They're fantastic, and they have artists from around the world for every style and budget. So just Google Glasshouse Graphics, you'll see them.
And I think Greg also has a couple of contacts he uses over in Lithuania.
That's right.
Oh, nice.
Standard Impressa, who I believe is the same company that printed the Alien RPG.
Oh, nice.
Quite good.
Yeah, it's like all these little Eastern European countries are getting a lot of the graphics jobs and stuff now. I've noticed that I think Fabula Ultima is also printed over in Lithuania as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's a fun one.
Yeah. Estonia is pretty good for printing in as well. It's just I don't do enough volume to justify printing in advance. So.
Right. So Ascendant Rogues Gallery was originally going to be printed in China, but then it has a Chinese superhero team, and it makes fun of China a little bit.
Oh,
so then I had to publish it in Singapore instead. So, oops.
Oh.
I like Singapore. One of my favorite martial arts organizations is out of Singapore. One fighting organization. But yeah. Well, we're up at the hour mark. We could stop if everybody wants to, or if you have extra time, or there's more questions from our chat or our panel, we could certainly go on. As long as you're okay on time.
Yeah, I can do another 30 minutes or so. I'm fine on time.
Okay. So Anybody out there in the chat, if you got any questions for Alex about any of his projects, we're focusing on Ascendant today, but I imagine he's okay for Axe questions. And I know a lot of you guys love Axe. I certainly do.
So, yeah. So why don't we start there? What's been the latest updates going on with Axe 2? I understand you're still you're still in the process of getting the art, but that aside, how's it been going trying to get all those little bugs with the math worked out?
Oh, I think at this point everything's worked out. I just went through 70 pages of notes with my editor, and we went line by line through all 3 books. Found a couple places where, you know, a change had been made in the revised rule book that wasn't reflected in the judge's journal, things like that. So it's mostly what I would call versioning bugs that we're working through, where something was changed in one edit, but then wasn't correctly updated elsewhere in the rules. I mean, it took us a while, but we just got through that. And so I think the next release of the PDFs will basically be not error-free, but virtually error-free, as close as we're going to get on a 1,500-page book with a team of 1.5. So beyond that, it's just a matter of art, and the art is coming along really well. There's just a lot of it. I had, Ascendant was twice as large as any game I'd ever done before, and Axe 2 is 3 times as large as Ascendant, so it's like 600% larger than my normal yearly project, and it's just a lot more art than I expected. I miscalculated, and so we're behind in getting it all produced.
And I got a $3 Australian super sticker from Mercurius with a cheering avocado. Oh my! What clip should I play for this one? What do you think, guys? Which one? Friendo?
Yeah.
For 3?
Yeah.
What about your favorite?
Come with me, Monkey Land.
So is Monkey Land.
Good enough, as long as it's not the Los Angeles one.
Oh yeah, the Los Angeles one is long.
It's like 5 minutes of my life every time you play it.
It's 1 minute and 33 seconds, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, but it feels
okay.
like 5.
It does.
Friendo.
Hey, what happened to Victor? Right. Victor used to be on every show I was ever on. Victor showed up. Where's Victor?
He's kind of taking a break from all of his internet stuff, just to concentrate on his writing. He's got his Kickstarter that he's having to fulfill, so he's busy rule crunching and kind of trying to stay off of social media and stuff.
I get it.
He was just nominated for an Emmy, though.
Oh wow! Congrats to him. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had what was it? Gods of the North was the book.
That's right. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Gods of the Forbidden North by Paul Pummock.
That's right. Paul Pummock Press.
Jeffrey's got a good question in chat,
yes, he does. Yes, he does. So is there a way to get the full Popular Core Axe 2 rulebook for those who neglected the opportunity to get on board in a Kickstarter? Yes.
Yes, I'm doing late backing. You can basically, you tell me what tier you want. I'm offering the $50 tier and the $200 tier, PDF versus full set of books. And then if you want the Poplar slipcase, you can order it as an add-on when we do the Pledge Manager. So it's $250 all in if you want that. So yeah, absolutely. A bunch of people have come in late. And so I've just kept it open. Unfortunately, Great. Kickstarter didn't allow late pledging via Kickstarter at the time I ran the campaign. They do now, but it doesn't retroactively work. So I've had to do it with PayPal. But yeah, absolutely. So Jeffro, if you missed it, or if you have friends who missed it, they can jump in. A ton of folks have. And when you jump in, you immediately get access to the current rules, so you can start playing it.
Nice. Greg, you had an observation about that case, didn't you?
I see. What was the question?
About the wood case,
the poplar.
You do some...
Oh yeah. Yeah, those guys were very, very small. I actually reached out to them on your recommendation and talked to them, and it's like a couple of guys working out of their garage. I mean, they do good work, but economically, what drew you to go with those guys and not like a big company that could do it very cheaply?
They're from my community, and they were a startup, and the Poplar slipcase was their idea. So
Oh,
That's cool.
Okay.
no, I
Sounds
wasn't
good.
gonna be like, thanks so much for a great idea, guys, and now I'm just gonna go fuck you over and go to China. That's not my style. So
Okay, so that was their idea. Yeah, I reached out to them and asked them if they could do wooden dice, like nice polished ones, and they said they could. So that could work out.
yeah, no, they're smart guys, and they're young, hungry entrepreneurs, and I was a young, hungry entrepreneur once, and remember really wishing somebody would give me that break and pitching people on ideas and then having them take the ideas and go to other companies and being really mad about it. So I
Yeah.
decided not to be that guy when I was in the other side of the equation.
Harmony's having fun with her cat.
She's been relentless this whole stream. I'm so sorry if you guys have been hearing her.
No, it's entertaining, actually.
I didn't hear her now.
She's an extra character in the show now.
Or at least a tail is.
It happens.
Sorry.
I'm the only one who doesn't have a cat, so.
I have a dog, not a cat.
Yeah, I have a dog.
So while we have a lull in conversation, I just want to quickly do my sales pitch. So
Sure.
Ascendants Star Spangled Squadron Volume 2, it's part of the Backer Kit Comictopia event. So Backer Kit is now doing its own crowdfunding directly as a competitor to Kickstarter and Indiegogo. They invited me to participate. There's about 20 groups that are each creating a graphic novel for it. Each of us is partnered with another company, and if you back both your product plus the other partner product, you get a bonus reward. And then there's also something called the Exquisite Corpse, which is a bonus comic that is going out to backers as well. So it's kind of like Backer Kit's way of trying to build the comic community. I was really flattered to be invited to participate, so of course I said yes. And I hadn't planned to do Ascendant Star Spangled Squadron until 2025, but since they gave me the invite, I moved it forward to 2024. So I hope you guys will check it out and keep supporting building out that universe because it's fun.
Sure.
There you go. Patty has a question. It says, Alex, given the history of the Ennies and the recent news at other awards thing at Gen Con, he's talking about the Crit Awards, do you think there's a need for a new awards commission still?
I mean,
you heard about that, right?
I did. Yeah, it would be really nice if there was an awards committee that actually acknowledged I existed. I think that would be pretty cool. I would support that.
Yeah. What is up with that? Is it? You think? Well, I mean, obviously they showed their hand that they're kind of politically motivated. But
yeah, I mean, it's fine. Like people are welcome to their politics, but if we're going to be political, then I would like to have one that's politically aligned with me. So,
there you go.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. It's like everything has gotten political as far as awards go, and it's almost to the point where it's like they're not worth the trash anymore because it's like if you're not doing it, for meritocracy, then why are you doing it?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
When they do that, they devalue their own award. So,
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jeffro has a quick question. What is the learning curve like for picking up Ascendant? Is it possible for lazy referees to get a game going?
Okay, so the answer there is that Ascendant is very, very easy to learn and play. What is hard is designing characters. So we do have an online system where you can design characters. It's a platform available on the website. Also, if you purchase the Ascendant Rogues Gallery, it's got a whole bunch of starter characters for the basic archetype, so you can just pick a starter character and start playing. In general, I'm able to teach people how to play the game faster than I'm able to teach them how to play Axe. I would say it's like 10 minutes, and they kind of grokked it. But the building of the characters is definitely complex if you want to get really into it, because you're like, trading off, do I want to have valor versus might, and which power do I want, and what sort of power stunts, and it's kind of GURPS-like in its complexity. But in terms of lazy GM, it is definitely a game that requires a skilled GM, because the players are allowed to be so powerful that they can do things you just can't plan for. Like, for instance, in the Star Spangled Squadron, one of the characters is named Warp, and he can teleport anywhere in the world with the group. So, like, how do you how do you plan for where they're going to go when they can literally just be like, you know what, in the middle of the fight, let's just go have some Denny's. And they did that to me once. So all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, now I need to have a Denny's, and I need to know the map of Denny's, and do the villains follow them to Denny's? What's on the Denny's menu? Like, and they just would do that constantly. So, yeah.
I mean, that definitely sounds like a game that I just wouldn't prep for at that point.
Yeah,
Google
I would
Maps
do
is your friend.
Google Maps. Yeah, what I would typically do is I would prep for their mission. So like, this is your mission, and this is the Google Maps of your mission, and these are the stats for the bad guys. But then after that, you're basically, you're going zero prep, because I mean, just the weirdest stuff would happen. So,
Mal, I kind of disagree with Palladium, just because, like, especially Rift, it's like 3 hours of character creation and 3 rounds of combat, and your character's dead. And I've seen it happen.
I would say it takes about the same amount of time as it takes to make a Palladium character. That's fair. Combat plays faster than Palladium.
That's good. All right. Well, yep. And Ironcaster's given us the Ascendant for that. Just kind of a roundabout suggestion. Having seen kind of the difference in the quality between POD from DTRPG and getting it personally bound, like what I did with Cities Without Number, is there a way we can get Ascendant that is not necessarily print on demand, but like a good printed copy?
Yeah. Autark Emporium has copies. You can it's literally, you go to my website, you buy it, and I ship it to you. So
sweet.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, and those are the original they're the revised Ascendant Platinum Edition with all of the corrected errata and everything. It's a really, really nice looking book. Real quality paper and everything. So yeah, way better than anything you can get on POD. I have moved away from doing POD for the most part, just because the quality level isn't great. Like, I do it only for small books now, small soft covers and stuff.
Yeah, it's like I got a bunch of PODs recently, and some of them had like pages falling out or cracks developing in the spine real quickly.
Yep. And I think the situation is getting worse. Like, I feel like maybe Lightning Source is cutting corners more and more as paper and things have gotten more and more expensive. So,
well, one of my viewers, who apparently is not in the chat right now, Aaron the Relentless. I love the dude. He's like a super genius too, and every time I have a question, I can ask Aaron, and he usually knows. But he was telling me that apparently Lightning Source is made to where you're supposed to have like 64 or 16 page blocks of paper and text, and if you have like a different number of pages or something, then it misaligns the printing and the spine and everything.
Oh wow, yeah, that would explain a lot. Yeah,
and I didn't know about this. He's the one who told me about it. And I was like, whoa.
I've never liked Lightning Source. Their quality's always been, relatively speaking, bad. Waxy covers, ink running just from the grease on your fingers. Lulu is better.
Yeah, I like Lulu.
But it depends which printer they use. But generally speaking, Lulu's better.
Yeah. And whoever Greg used for printing, I guess that's a Lithuanian source. It's like they have his books are really good too. The Iries books.
Yeah,
I should know.
The paperback books are all printed with a company called Comics Wellspring. And they're probably the largest comic book printer in the United States, at least for indie comics.
Oh, wow.
But they also do the square-bound novels and graphic novels, and I use the same format for my softcover RPG books, because you can just make the cover very thick and then give it a little gloss, and it looks like a standard RPG book, but they're pretty cheap too.
So, Jeffro, I think you'd actually really like Ascendant, because you're not afraid of math and crunch. Like, you like Car Wars, you like GURPS, and it's got organization rules. So you could literally run a Bronstein where you give each player one of the superhero organizations to be in control of, and you basically would have an enormously good time destroying humanity in very rapid order as everybody goes crazy with their superpowers. So if you do that, please let me know. We need to like make a show of that or something.
You had him at Braunstein.
Yeah, you did. Patty says, may he ask again about, as a games maker, to deal with self-described community leaders instructing players to homebrew or to play their version of the rules rather than raw.
Yeah, I mean, I have a really, really simple heuristic I use, which is that you're absolutely welcome to homebrew acts however you'd like and play it however you think is best. Every campaign is a law unto itself. But if you change the game, you lose your right to complain about the game on Discord.
That seems fair.
Yeah. So it's like, and that came because I had a guy criticize that the Thracian gladiator was overpowered. And I was like, oh, are you finding, what's his AC? Oh, it's like 15 with plate armor. It's like, well, Thracian gladiators aren't allowed to wear plate armor. Yeah, I changed that because the player was upset he couldn't wear. And then I'm like, all right, well, what about the movement limitation of the slow movement? He's like, oh, I changed that because the player didn't like his character being slow. I'm like, okay, well, yes, if you remove all of the balancing factors that keep the character from being overpowered, it will be overpowered. Yes, that is. So this is my new rule: is that you can do whatever you want with Axe, but if you change it, don't complain to me when you break it.
Yeah, that's like monks with their we can either stand in one place and do our multiple fist attack, or we can move and then get one attack, and it's like, no, let's just take that out and just let them just do all their multi fist attacks whenever they want to.
Exactly. This is the main mistake people make when they homebrew or house rule, is they don't understand that RPGs are holistic systems, and so you can't change one thing without considering all of the downstream implications of the change.
Mm-hmm.
And
you bought it and you broke it.
Yeah. And it's just, and you see it even in professionally designed commercial products. It's really, it's actually a little bit depressing that in some ways the state of the art is not as good as it ought to be, given how many years we've all been doing this.
Well, I mean, it's like, I had a DM who, like I said, we were mostly playing 3.0, 3.5, and he decided one day that he was going to get rid of the AoE rules, and I'm just kind of like, or I'm like, okay, so our AOO rules, the attack of opportunity rules,
right?
And I'm like, okay, so like half of my character build, including the reach of my weapon, is designed around AOO, and you're just eliminating this factor. So of course everything is like running up there and raffle stomping me.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, people don't realize how when you change something very, very small in the game, it can have rippling effects that just kind of come out and break a completely different system. It's like you're playing a completely different game at a certain point.
Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Well, the example I like to use for Axe 2 is the diameter of a fireball. So in Axe, the diameter of a fireball is 20 feet, but in basic D&D, it's 40 feet. So it's 20-foot radius versus 20-foot diameter. And that little change is the difference between whether or not massed formations on the battlefield make sense or are suicidal. Because if your wizard can wipe out a 40-foot diameter, he can take out an entire company of troops with a single spell. Whereas if it's a 20-foot diameter, then that's a platoon of troops, not a company of troops. And given the ratios of wizards to troops, suddenly formations become valuable versus not valuable. So
I was about to say, on the converse side, I've seen people who go rules as written, and I'm kind of like, I've pointed out more than once, it's kind of like, well, the fireball spell actually says that it will combust things that it explodes on, whereas the red dragon breath does not. So it's like, yeah, you have a dragon breathing fire in the library, and none of the books are touched, but a wizard detonates a fireball, and all the books are burnt up. So.
Yeah. It's I myself, I'm not like a rules as written, I guess, fundamentalist or rules as written Puritan. I think every GM can and should adapt the game as they see fit, but just do it wisely with an understanding of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And Jeffro says, superhero would be great for B-Dub's total nonstop Braunstein. So he's going to try to drum up some support for that.
Oh, nice. Well, let me know if you do. That would be good fun. I'll definitely want to pay attention to what you guys get up to.
I'm looking forward to the Dr. Doom-esque villain who decides to start taking over parts of Central Africa for resources.
We actually, so that's actually a plot point in Ascendant, which is the maximum leader, who's the head of Exodus, the main villainous faction, takes over the island of Nauru and sets it up as the Ascendant Republic of Nauru. Nauru being the most isolated country in the world. It's an island in the Pacific. And so, yeah.
Do they wear Nauru jackets?
No, actually unrelated, right? Like, I totally had the same thought. I'm like, why do these motherfuckers not wear Nauru collars? But no, totally unrelated, spelled differently. I was really bummed when I found out. But yes,
yeah. Imagine most
I'm,
people out there don't even know what Nauru jackets are. But
I think Nauru jackets. I'm trying to make them a thing, right? Like, because they kind of look like intergalactic space uniforms.
They do,
and, right? And I feel like suits are passe. Nobody wears suits anymore unless you're like a doorman in Manhattan. So like we need new formal wear for men to make us look cool again. And so I'm trying to make it like Nauru, like Mandarin Nauru collars, Nauru jackets, and like kind of like a, like I'm calling it Galactic Core is going to be the name for the fashion.
Hey,
yeah.
All right.
The problem with that sort of game with superheroes and villains, the Bronstein aspect, at least based on my experience, is when players get to do this, everybody wants to be the big supervillain. Like, I had the players that ran that God Bronstein that I've posted so much about, and like everyone was an evil god. It's like, doesn't anyone want a good alignment, guys? No, they don't.
Yeah. I can see that.
I'll give you the god of flowers. You just want to see like nature grow up, but oh wait, no, I could be evil and like make nature try to overtake civilization.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it was exactly that.
I'd be the god of wine, just because we've seen what the effect that Dionysus had on Greek civilization. So.
My favorite villain in Ascendant is Free Radical. So she was a young anti-nuclear protester who was protesting Fukushima when Fukushima melted down, and and it made her superpowers manifest. So now she has radiation control. So she's a nuclear-powered anti-nuclear activist, and she's like this self-hating progressive. It's very funny.
Oh no,
that's hilarious!
I love that.
So free Radical, yeah.
As soon as you said anti-nuclear, I'm like, okay, is the superhero?
Yes.
Where's the twist?
Yes. So
it's monkey's paw superhero powers.
That's kind of how the setting. That's kind of the premise of the setting, is that your superheroes manifest based on at the moment of your ascension, like what was going on and what did you need and what did you most desperately wish for. So another villain I really like is Helen Killer, who's the world's most powerful. She's the world's most powerful blind, deaf, mute assassin. So
Helen Killer.
Yeah, she's pretty fantastic. But she shows up in the first graphic novel. She's a major character.
Jeffro observes that in comic books, evil is active and good is reactive. I would say that's actually in most games too, actually, because it's like most of the time you're playing heroes who are going out to stop an evil in progress or prevent an evil from happening. But the funny thing is, when good gets proactive and tries to, put stuff in place to stop evil from happening, they become the oppressors. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
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 Patty says, I would like to know more about how to present game lore. How much lore is too much, in your opinion?
So I think the sad answer there is that ultimately, as the GM, when you present game lore, you're presenting it for your own pleasure and for the pleasure of that one guy in the game group that will appreciate it. And it's up to you guys. But like, I've been playing with my home group for years and years and years, and our games still go like this. It'll be, all right, so we need to find out the worshippers of that one god who's like the storm god dude, and then we got to get his relic back to that like one big city that's on the wall place. And I'm like, so you guys are going to try and get the hammer of Orneron and take it to the citadel on the dark wall? And they're like, yeah, that's it. So they just
I recall seeing somebody's live play where the GM literally spent the first 20 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating, the first 20 minutes of the show telling the players / the audience the background and history of his world, and I was just kind of like,
yeah. No, it's true.
I've seen GM advice online before that's like you should act out a cut scene to like show the lore. I was like, like literally the worst
No.
advice I've ever heard. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it can get pretty bad.
And
I
so
don't-
Vanathos.
I think the only time I've ever seen massive exposition work is in the 1984 version of Dune.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. When he did it as like the voiceovers and things like that. That
Yeah.
was pretty neat. Yeah.
And somehow that movie was still superior to the new one that came out.
I quite like that movie. Yeah, it was really good.
The original or the new one?
The original, the 1984. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's so interesting when the characters actually have some, you have some idea who the characters are and what they're thinking and some history on them rather than just, throw a random collection of dead, soulless CGI images and people who you have no idea what their motivation is for anything or who they are.
Right.
I don't call me crazy, but
Look, we got the Atreides house battle pugs. Like,
oh,
what more do we need?
There you
true.
go.
It's true.
I mean, yeah, Jeffro. Yeah, when Princess Irulan fades out because and I forgot to tell you. Yeah, I love that. I would kind of agree with that. Full Metal. The sci-fi miniseries is pretty accurate.
I haven't
It
seen
really
it.
is.
That's the only one I've seen.
Really?
It's
Is it
good.
It's good.
Yes.
Okay.
I remember liking it. I watched it in high school.
It had a sequel too, and most people
I
haven't
didn't
seen
know
it. I have them both because I am a nerd.
I refuse to acknowledge the existence of Dune sequels. It ended with Dune. Paul rules the universe.
Fair. Kind of seeing what happens afterward. Almost pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
One
Sometimes
more thing.
I think a lot of these sci-fi books work better as miniseries than as movies, to be honest. Like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy also, like the best version of that was the British miniseries. And that's always
Damn
going to be
straight.
I knew Grim was going to say something.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
What about the audio? What with the audio dramas of them?
The miniseries is better. I'll die on that hill.
There's many of the same people starred in the miniseries as were on the radio drama, which came first.
Oh, nice. I've heard really good things about the Hitchhiker's Guide radio drama, actually. So
Yeah, it is really good.
It is.
I know this is going to be like controversial. I wouldn't want to see it made in today's Hollywood, but a project I would like to see made, especially with today's graphics capability and special effects, is I would so much love to see the Split Infinity series.
Oh,
Piers
I remember
Anthony.
that by Piers Anthony. Yeah, that was a great series. I love that series, actually.
I would never acknowledge anything by Piers Anthony.
Really?
Yeah, I do not like Piers Anthony. I think he's horrible.
As an author or as a person?
As an author. I don't know about as a person. I've never met him.
Wow, I did not know this. What?
I just don't like. Yeah, I think it's really bad.
Wow.
He's
Is
not a great prose stylist at all. And when I went back and read him as an adult, I definitely picked up that he's not a great prose stylist. But he had but Split Infinity had really good world building that I enjoyed. So.
I haven't read Split Infinity. But the ones I've read have like really nasty stuff in them.
Yeah.
It's like I don't even want to say what on your show what he puts in his books. It's
like Bio the
beyond
Space Tyrant
inappropriate.
really has a lot of really bad stuff in it. Yeah.
Like, and I can handle I can handle stuff like Game of Thrones, and like Piers Anthony just is too much for me. I don't like him.
Yeah. I think John Ringo is overrated myself, but
Oh, John Ringo. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I like some of his writing. Yeah. But
anyway, we're at our 30-minute mark, and I know you have to go, but thanks for being with us today, Alex. I really, really enjoyed having you on. Even talking comic books with you was fun.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. It's good to meet you, Harmony. I've followed you on Twitter for a while now.
Yeah, it's good to meet you too. I was really excited.
Yay! It's awesome.
I don't know what your schedule might be like. I'll have to reach out to you probably off air, but I am part of a comic book show that I think might be worth reach out and having you come on to talk a little more.
That would be awesome. I'd love to. That'd be great. Let me know.
All right.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
All right. Take care, everyone. See you next week. Tomorrow, I've got Zombicide Chronicles running for Grimm's group. And Tuesday, of course, we have Dungeons and Discussions in the morning. And then we have Tuesday with Geeks at night. So hang out with us, and we'll see you then.
On behalf of the staff of the Independent California Motel, I wish you all sweet dreams.